G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza, and today we're doing a character design session where I'm taking requests from the Twitch chat. We're going to start off by taking a whole bunch of requests for genre. So I'm going to get the Twitch chat to throw stuff at me and I'll just write down whatever seems to stick and we'll go from there. And the voting begins, and it is a choice between horror, anime, cyberpunk, superhero, western, and fantasy. They're like actually fairly evenly divided. Now, if you went to a party and someone drunkenly cut the cake like that, you wouldn't be too disappointed. Horror is the winner. So, horror. Alright, so taking a request from the Twitch chat for horror characters. In fact, let's go creature types. So horror, like we could go human. In fact, I'll just put human and we can, if that wins, we'll figure out something else. But there are other horror animals or creatures or whatever. So we have werewolf, vampire, very cool. And not the Edward Cullen type, but a cooler type. Ghost, nice. Zombie, nice. Wendigo. I have no idea what that is, but I've heard the name somewhere. Scarecrow. Scarecrow is actually kind of cool. I'm gonna put that down and I'll take one more and it is a ghoul. Bam. So we have 8 different horror creatures that can be picked from and it's between Scarecrow and Wendigo. Do you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do another poll whenever it's this close. Cause I love polls! They were neck and neck, so now it's between Scarecrow and Wendigo. Wendigo. Sounds like way to go. Wendigo. Right on, Wendigo! So the winner is Wendigo. I have no idea what a Wendigo is. Apparently it's something like this stuff. So this is our final round of voting. So the winner is the horror creature Wendigo, and the Twitch chat are all now voting on what kind of Wendigo it is. And it looks like it's going to be either Mecha or Egyptian. Alright, so it's still neck and neck. I might have to do another tiebreaker. Am I drawing a Mecha Wendigo or an Egyptian Wendigo? Alright, it refuses to be anything but a tie, so I'm going to close my eyes, count to 20, and when I open my eyes, the winner is what I see at the top. 1, 2, 18, 19, 20. And the winner is an Egyptian Wendigo. There we go. See, problem solved. All right, so I think I'm ready to start drawing. I'm going to be creating an Egyptian Wendigo. Now, for those of you who haven't really gone through my character design videos before, there are 4 steps to the character design process that I go through. The 4 steps of the design process are discover, design, develop, and deliver. And we're going to go through all of those steps today, and I've gone through the first step on my own to discover what I'm drawing. So a Wendigo, it turns out, is an American-Canadian mythology of a creature that has evolved from someone who's been cannibalistic and turns into a demonic, animalish thing that devours and is greedy and stuff. So now I'm going to be doing an Egyptian version of an American-Canadian mythological creature. So the second step of the design process is design. So I'm going to now throw on as many design elements into this thought process as possible. And it really is a brainstorm session. I'm really just throwing everything at a piece of paper and seeing what sticks. So this includes traditional versions of the Wendigo creature and then elements of more Anubis type characteristics that might work as a Wendigo, and then more humanistic designs. And then sort of just mixing and matching, seeing what works, seeing the strengths and weaknesses of each design, and starting to refine what I prefer aesthetically before we move on to the other steps of the design process. Alright, so I've played with the initial design process, and normally I would sort of go into this a little further, but you know, for the sake of keeping this content reasonable in its time span, I'll just sort of move on to the next stage, which is development. So what I do know from this design process is that I want to focus on the more Anubis type characteristics of the Wendigo creature. So I want to go with that more dog-like face. I'm going to do a bit of a torso up, pelvis up image of our character. So I then want to further develop what the character looks like more in the body and stuff. So in the development phase, I'm going to use the Anubis style face and features, but I'm going to maybe make 2 or 3 different character designs with mucking around with sort of the limbs and proportions and how I might go about that. And then I'll put the few designs I come up with to the vote for the Twitch chat to pick, and then whichever one wins, I'll do a final delivery delivery of the character, which is the fourth stage of the design process. For the first character, I'm going much more of a dog style look, like a rabid dog who is more of a Wendigo creature, but with some Egyptian aspects of it. So I also realized later along the line that people are saying that the antlers are a part of a Wendigo, so I kind of throw that in there in the mix too, but it's a bit difficult to decide how to go about that because the Wendigo is usually a more deer-like American creature. The second character is much more bulky and beast-like. Not sure if this works or doesn't, but in the end, you know, it's worth playing and see what works. But it could potentially look cool to have a very powerful-looking beast-like character, almost like a werewolf, but Wendigo Egyptian. And then number 3, I'm going for a really classic Egyptian upright royalty look with an Anubis dog character and gold trinkets and clothing worn around the character to make it look regal and royal. Alright, so I'm going to put that to the vote. In the Twitch chat are currently voting between 1, 2, and 3. 1 being a more hunched over, you know, skinny, like, whatchamacallit, wolfish type Anubis-y antlery thing. Number 2, much more beastie, big, bulky dude. And number 3, much more refined Egyptian, sort of standing upright. Alright, so the winner is number 1. So I'm going to be drawing a Anubis cross Wendigo with really torn apart clothes, sort of with blood and fur and all this stuff. And hopefully it'll turn out cool. So I've gone through 3 stages of the design process, beginning with discovery, trying to figure out what a Wendigo is and how the hell you make it Egyptian. Number 2 is fiddling around with some of the design aspects and playing with that. And then number 3 is development, so taking that concept of the Egyptian Wendigo and then developing it further until finally we have a design that we're fairly happy with. And then number 4 in the design process steps thing, we deliver it. So now I'm going to produce a refined, finished design of my Anubis-y Wendigo. So I start off by using construction lines to block out the very basic shapes of the body, focusing particularly on trying to get a cool looking silhouette, something sort of lanky and emaciated with a little bit of power in the stance while still appearing a little more zombie-like and like a Wendigo. Once I'm happy with the construction lines, I can then start to add some refinement and detail on top of my construction lines. And I've also decided in this final delivery piece of the character to go with horns instead of antlers, because they're sort of like a middle ground. Antlers would make the character look too much like a deer, whereas horns make it look a little bit more demonic and sort of hint at the Wendigo style. I want to make his fur and features look emaciated and show the muscle and sinew as much as possible while still keeping the character an animal and making it furry. So to do that, I just keep fur in clumps, sort of at joints, usually at the elbows or shoulders, but then also make sure to show the anatomy showing through on the surface of the fur and the skin of the character. So I've got a sketch character that I'm happy with, and I'm now ready to move forward and create the design in a finished form and make it really stand out. First of all, I'm going to go through and do my line work, and I'm going to use a really fine point and go through the whole piece, and I'm not going to erase my pencil construction lines because they will create this fairly rough look, which I will like and want to keep. If I erase them, it'll look too clean. I want to keep it nice and dirty. And that being said, I actually want to add a bit of grit to it. So when I go through and do my line work, I'm going to add a lot of cross-hatching and shading with my pen before I even get to color and shading later on. So after I've solidified my silhouette and main features of the character with a 0.3 fine liner, I then go through with my 0.1 and really add a lot of detail and grit, both texturally and in shading and shadow with cross-hatching and line shading. For a really clean, consistent, attractive look with line shading, I keep everything in the same direction, but to keep something looking a little bit more gritty and raw, I like to vary the direction of the lines at sporadic moments, and that creates much more of a textural interest and something that looks stylistically a little bit more edgy. So I'm pretty happy with how this has turned out. We've got a pretty gritty look, fairly strong silhouette and good sort of tonal variety. And then as you can see, the areas of really solid cross-hatch shading, for example here, and then on the insides of the hands are pretty solidly done, but that adds some really nice tonal variety. So now I'm ready to jump in and add some color. So I'm going to be using Copic markers to add the color. And first I need to experiment and figure out what my palette is going to look like. I actually might change my plan slightly and add in some lines for where there might be some color differences to give it more of an Egyptian look. So rather than being a flat color all throughout, I'm going to add some lines, wish me luck, I hope I don't ruin the piece, throughout this head garb to create some tonal variety. And so I'm going to have it vary between gold and blue, and then the horns will be gold. And hopefully that'll create a really nice contrast between the very desaturated skin tones and the red of the blood that will be throughout the piece as well. My N5 neutral grey is running out of colour, so to counteract this, I'm just using it in the areas of highlight and then filling in the rest with my N7 and N9. So my skin tones are going to be created with N5, N7 and N9 neutral grey tones, keeping it quite dark and really desaturated. Adding saturation through the cloth and areas of the character, I'm going to be using blue with B24 Sky shaded with cool greys, and then I'm going to be using more of a neutral white-ish tone, but a little earthy and dirtier, using E40 brick white and neutral grey number 1 as the base, and then adding N3 and E43 dull ivory to sort of bring down the tones there. Some gold, for example, in the horns of the character, and then also having some fairly strong saturation in places for the blood. In doing the blood, I start off with my lighter R24 prawn and then work that up through the skin tone, and then add some R59 cardinal to add some darker shading, and then to make it really look like it's soaking into the fur and really wet, I use N3 neutral grey to then blend it back into the skin color, especially where it tapers off, and this is going to create a really nice fresh blood look. So this is my finished result. It's a vertical piece, so you can't see all of it. So this is the top half with the cute little horn thingies, and then he's got this lanky sort of body covered in blood after Wendigo-like murderous Egyptian activities. I hope you guys enjoyed this character design session. I had loads of fun and I'm really happy with the outcome, especially given that I had no idea what a Wendigo was when we started. So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to check out future streams by clicking the link on the screen in the description. And the last thing to do is sign it, and we're done. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.